So today I have an award-winning actor. He's a SAFTA award-winning actor. He's been on South African television for, I think, decades. Started off in, remember Isidingo? Remember those days? He's been in Scandal, Seven de Laan, Snitch, Out Saunders. You probably name it on South African TV. He's been on it. He was recently in Trackers, which is, I think, showing on Showmax. And I saw also in the US now on Cinemax. He is a singer, sings like a dream. He's a dancer. He stole the title of Strictly Come Dancing from Trevor Noah. I don't think Trevor Noah's ever recovered. His career just went downhill from there.
Yes.
And Emmanuel Castis, who is joining me, is an all-around nice guy, a guy I've known for many years. So he's speaking to me from a dressing room in a studio where he's recording at the moment. So he's on his phone. It's going to be wobbling around a bit. Emmanuel Castis, thank you so much for joining me from your dressing room.
What an intro. Wow. You know?
I know, hey? I sold you quite well.
Jeez.
I know.
That is amazing. Will you be my PR guy?
Okay, I tried. So one of the things that you do need to realize is that when I say this stuff, it's actually just your CV. And basically everyone who I've introduced has been so impressed by their own CV, but I don't think you guys realize how much you've done and how impressive it all is.
Absolutely, because you just do the work and you just move on from work to work and you're just chasing the next job so you can survive and whatever. So yeah, every time, like when I hear it back, I'm like, hey, that's actually not bad. That's pretty cool. I've done some shit in my life. Am I allowed to swear on this show?
You're allowed to say.
I've done some stuff on my life. Yes. Yeah.
And you've also done loads of theatre. You've been Rocky and Rocky Horror, Jersey Boys, you name it, you've done it. So you've been around, Emmanuel. You've got around.
I've been around the block, and it's been quite an amazing journey. Yeah,
and now you end up at least working in lockdown, which is quite something. So this series that I'm doing has all been speaking to people I know and familiar faces about how they've been dealing with lockdown. So have you managed to keep on working then during lockdown if you're sitting in a dressing room? I know lockdown's eased a lot, but obviously for the last 80 days we've all been basically locked in our homes foraging for food. The only time we're allowed out.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. So it hasn't been, it's only been the last 4 weeks, 3-4 weeks since we went into phase, was it 4, level 4, right? Yeah. They opened up studios and stuff, and this job was meant to have started like the middle of May, only started end of May. So for a good, 7 weeks or whatever, I was also just doing nothing and scrounging and totally, like for the first couple of weeks, I was focusing on industry and what I was doing and writing songs. And then I just got a little bit kind of freaked out and thought, okay, I need to try and figure out a way to still survive financially. And got involved in something completely outside of the industry. And turns out that every man, woman, and their dog are trying to sell PPE, masks and stuff. So so got involved in that, and it's mad. It was madness. It was actually just a whole lot of madness until I actually had to stop and go, hold on. This is just crazy. I need to just calm down and see what's around me and what's going on. And then luckily came out of level 5 and into level 4 and then started filming again. And now my soul's being replenished and breathing again.
So I just want to go back because I don't think people realize in this country, I worked with actors, I was an agent for a number of years, and I don't think people realize to be a successful actor in this country doesn't necessarily mean that you're working like they do in the States, where you are able to take breaks and you are able to financially just kind of like, I took a year sabbatical. Like if you're not working, you're not earning money, and that is a problem for actors. And so when the industry dies, and like the industry did, it was actually crippling for actors, even successful actors such as yourself.
Yeah.
And I don't think people
Absolutely.
actually realize that it was so devastating for the industry.
No, absolutely. It's insane what's happened. And there are so many people that are literally going hungry in our industry, that are literally just need a little bit of money or, relief to just feed themselves and their families. And, I'm one of the lucky ones in that I have a great support system in my family and my partner and that kind of thing. But there's a lot of people out there who have kids and just nowhere to look.
Yeah.
So, and that's, so there's been some amazing initiatives that have come out of it as well. Usually it's the artists that are raising money for other people, for other organizations through their skills and their entertainment and everything. And for the first time, actually, in what I can think of, is we've got artists who have now gone onto a platform, which is something that Owen Lanza started, called Waiting in the Wings SA, where artists are raising money for artists and helping feed artists. And it's not just artists, it's producers as well. I'm pretty sure there's a lot of production companies out there that have had to close doors because they just can't run their companies, and they had something that was in the pipeline that was then just cancelled by the networks or whatever, and so it's really just a reboot now. Everybody's having to reboot and start almost from scratch.
Yeah. Tell us about the initiative that you did to raise money for the actors. What did you guys do there?
So Owen got together a whole group of specifically corporate theatre performers, some also who work outside of that realm, but you realize that there's a lot of people who gain their income just from doing that, events and all of that. And of course, events are dead. He started a campaign called Waiting in the Wings SA, and we went onto a platform, which is a great platform called ensued.live, and we all go on there and we do a concert, literally on a Saturday night. We did a live concert from our phones or wherever, and to raise money. And it was incredibly successful that night, and it's now moving on to more phases.
Fantastic. So people can still contribute towards that fund if they want to?
Yes. Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
So that's a good thing.
It's a Back a Buddy account, yeah. So.
It's the Back a Buddy account, okay. And then I've seen them on Facebook. It's called Unseen is the group that I think.
Yes, yeah.
So yeah, if you guys are looking for something to support, the actors in our country also need your support. So let's support them. Unseen is what you can look for. I want to go back. Now you said
Waiting in the Wings SA. Yeah,
Waiting in the Wings
initiative. Waiting in the Wings. Yeah.
I want to go back, Emmanuel, just to talk about what you said was that you lost it, the kind of the industry, and you started at first kind of dealing with by writing songs and then went into a bit of a breakdown. Tell me about your mental health, your state of mind as lockdown hits to the point of before you eventually managed to get back onto your feet again.
It was crazy. It was like really, really bizarre. It's like such a surreal thing that's happened to the world, and of course, we're in the entertainment industry, so you almost think you're prepared for surreal things because that's what you live in. You live in a world that can be surreal sometimes. You perform in a world. You tell stories that are sometimes fantastical but you don't expect it to happen in real life. And that's what happened. Literally, imagining zombie apocalypses in my head, that kind of thing. But then you go into thinking and imagining about what people are experiencing out there who are less fortunate than oneself, That just broke my heart, thinking about the many people who'd be suffering because of what's happening. So that made my head spin as well. And I was like, oh, this can't be, this is crazy. And so I just went into this crazy sort of rush to do things. So every day I was on the phone trying to sell masks and trying to do something. And every day I was like, it was quite erratic and crazy and pacing up and down. And it was almost as it became a crutch for me to be dealing with what was going on. Like I completely became absorbed in this world. And then I realized Charlene, my partner, was like, babe, whoa, you're becoming so obsessed with this thing. You need to realize what's and that kind of helped me step back a bit and go, whoa, okay. There's this madness that's starting to ensue. And if we don't look at what we have around us and what's there, and just actually start looking at the things we can be grateful for, it's just this thing's just gonna drive us crazy. And that's, and that's the thing. I imagine the people who are out there who didn't have a support base, who's sitting alone in an apartment and have nothing and no one, what that must be doing to them. I'm thinking about the people who live in townships who are like, being told they've got to follow certain laws, and they're like, what are you talking about? How do we adhere to something like this when it's just not possible?
Your world was kind of quite shaken, and it sounds to me like you went into a bit of a state of panic. Would that be a good
Absolutely.
word to use?
Yeah.
And then, so what pulled you out of that? Because you said your partner said, that you needed to, you were going a bit into panic mode. What did you do to kind of turn things around, to regain composure? What kind of resilience did you have to tap into?
I kind of had to realize that we're not in this alone. I wasn't in this alone. I have a beautiful partner who loves me dearly and who I love. And there's a support system there. There's I have a beautiful family, my mother. I had to sit and look at that and go, hold on. We've got people around us. We've got this. We don't have to be in this alone and panic to try and make something happen with this. This is actually a time where all of us have to really group together and really work together, because the world has changed and it's going to be different for a long time. In fact, I don't think it's ever going to go back to what it was before. And so this is where we all have to start looking and going, okay, it's the reset button and what's important. And that's what made me go, okay, let's reset here. Hold on. What's important to me? And that's what I looked at. I looked at my family, my partner, the friends that we started looking at, like, what was important, and then started whittling things out in my life as well. Even though I'm stuck in a lockdown situation, I started thinking about the dead weight that I needed to get rid of. And that's, I think, what brought me back.
Yeah, that's amazing. I'm loving what you're saying. There's a couple of things in terms of resilience, which is what I always bring these back to, is the importance of finding support and community, I think, is so important. I think when we think we're doing things on our own, we literally, that sense of being alone, I don't think we realize what it does to our mental health. And when we start saying, almost either asking for help or realizing that we've got people around us who care for us, it's almost instinctive, because we're so wired to connect. It almost makes us reset and able to go, okay, there's a sense of we're in this together. The tribe is back together. I'm not out hunting all on my own. So it's quite an important thing that I think you've said there, because I do think community is so important. What's so important about what you've said is that sense of community is important, but it's also about realizing your purpose. So what you also spoke about there is that it was going back to what is the purpose in all of this, finding the whys, so when we sit in that sense of panic, all we're waiting for is the next thing that can prove we're okay. Rather than actually saying, why am I doing this? I've got a partner who loves me. I've got a family who loves me. I've got all of these things, for why we're in this together, and going back to that basic resolve. But you also said something which I think is important, is that it is also about using these kind of times as an opportunity to say, well, what do I need in my life and what don't I need in
We
my life?
are, as human beings, we are mapped out and we are designed to be communal. There's no doubt about it. There's so much truth in so many sayings, like it takes a village to raise a child and all that kind of stuff. I read a book years ago by a guy called Francis Fukuyama, who speaks about the Industrial Revolution and how that affected community, and how eventually human beings will eventually come back to being communal, because that's what we're designed to. And I guess it's happening digitally now with all the technology we have. But yeah, for me, that's what it's about. It's about the importance of community.
Yeah, and I think that that's because it's one of the things we have lost, and we've gained it in a kind of a manufactured way in terms of like these kind of things, in terms of Zoom, and we no longer see each other except for our eyes. We can't see each other's mouths now when we go out into society. But
Yeah.
I think it's made us realize the importance of community, and it's the importance of who you allow into your life. And
Absolutely.
I know that I've spent quite a bit of time looking at what I've missed in the lockdown, because that's given me an insight into what I want to add into my life.
Yes.
And if there's certain people that I've missed, those are people I want to reconnect with, and I think that's almost what you're saying as well, is that it's given you an opportunity to just reset and say, well, what's actually important and who is important in my life?
Exactly.
And I think that's actually quite an opportunity. I spoke to Erica Vessels, and she said, what if COVID is the biggest gift given to humankind, because it's making us just reconnect as human beings?
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's incredible. Yeah, it is. It is. And you're reconnecting in a more real and more substantial and real way, as opposed to the superficial world that we've been living in for a long time,
Yeah.
And that just bodes for an amazing kind of world,
Yeah. So tell me, you're on set at the moment. What are things like on set at the moment in terms of what kind of protocols happen? Is it business as usual in the industry now?
Well, it is, but there are a lot of protocols involved. We have to wear masks constantly. In fact, if the production manager comes up here and sees me, I'm going to have to put a mask on. There's, having to sanitize. It's also difficult because we are such tactile human beings. You see a friend that you've worked with for years in the industry. I remember when I first came here to get my scripts and everything, you just can't hug someone. Hello, you can't, but it's business as usual, getting those scenes out, getting the work done.
I'm assuming that all kissing scenes have been cut from anything.
Yeah. You don't, you can barely even, you have to be asked if you want to touch, like, for example, a handshake. If you don't want to as an actor, then you can refuse to. But then after that's happened, immediately someone's on set to sanitize your hands and sanitize everything. But, also, like, a lot of the productions were already in working, and the production I'm sitting at here is one that's been long standing. So they're now having to catch up the time they lost.
Yeah.
And so it's a mad rush to catch that up. So the work is having to be, extended work days, but also before level, what level are we on now? 3. Yes. Before level 3, when there was curfew, you had a very set time to be able to film, because everybody had to be home by a certain time, and everybody could only leave home at a certain time. So you had crew that could only leave home at 5 a.m. to get here. And when you've got a system where you usually prepare the next day's scenes, the sets, when you do it usually the evening before the next day, now everybody had to go home. So there were a couple of hours in the morning where they have to sort of put the sets together and stuff like that. So it affected a lot of the process. But now back into the swing of things, just having to be careful. And I think a lot of people, it's like, I think what the president said last night at his speech was that we're all very responsible for how we deal with this thing. So, you know, you have to practice your own kind of you have to be responsible for yourself and how you affect others with this, with, you know, being careful and sanitized and all that kind of thing.
Emmanuel, I just wanted to start wrapping up, and I just want to ask you, so in terms of kind of going forward, what are you taking from your COVID lessons? We obviously couching this in resilience and in mental health, and what lessons do you think you've learned by the experience you went through? Because you did go through quite an emotional response to it. And what kind of lessons do you think you've learned, and what can we learn from you from this?
Well, I think the main lesson for me was to cut out all the outside noise and to really focus on what you have and where you're at in your life, and be grateful for what you have in your life and all that kind of thing. Because we tend as human beings to focus on the outside noise and to focus on the prize that we're working towards. And yes, there's nothing wrong with having goals. One should have goals. But I think we waste a lot of time not focusing on the present and what's really happening in the present. And for me, I was worried about what's going on, what's going to happen. I went into flat panic. I'm like, I'm not earning money. What's going to happen? Geez, I've got no work. I don't even know if I'm going to have work when I come out of this. I need to find a way. I need to find a way. And it just drove me mad. Yeah. Instead of going, okay, cool. It is what it is. Let's deal with what it is. And I think if you focus on the now, then you tend to deal with whatever's happening better and clear. With more clarity, as opposed to freaking out and trying to figure out what will happen. Don't worry about what will happen. You've got to worry about what is happening. Yeah. And I think that's the truth for a lot of people with this, with what's happened with COVID. It's like essentially there's such a big unknown there. And I've always remembered something I read, and I can't even remember where I read it. It was about the unknown and how we tend to fear the unknown. And this author said, what if we think about celebrating the unknown and being excited in the unknown and what it brings? I mean, it sounds weird to be celebrating something like a virus that's killing people, but that's not what I'm saying. It's like just kind of like celebrate not knowing what's going to happen, and create something out of that, as opposed to trying to control what might happen. Control what you're doing right now. Yeah. I don't know if that all made sense.
It does make, and Emmanuel, it speaks exactly to, I did an interview with a psychologist, Daniela, and it was, she spoke very much the same thing about focusing on what we can control, and deciding to what we can't control to just sit with and accept. And I think that is what's so important, and what's so amazing about what you're saying is it is about accepting that I can't control the situation, and accepting that I can't control it is one of the things that I can control.
Exactly.
And that actually is what makes sense in all of this, is accepting this place that it's shit, the situation is shit. Yeah. None of us want to deal with it. We all want to go back to the stories we used to tell. It's not going to be like that anymore. I'm just going to sit with it, and I'm just going to control my response to it. And sometimes the response, and I think what you've done is in your journey is you chose to respond to it, and then chose a different way to respond to it when you found that response wasn't working. And that I think is also what resilience is finding what works to make you feel stronger, as opposed to make you feel more like you're not in control. Resilience is about finding what you can control.
Yeah, I mean, it's like that. It's like that story. Like, you can't control what happens in the world. It's that story about the boy and his father, who his father is looking at a map, and he's trying to teach his son a lesson. and he tears the map up and he says to his son, oh, his son's irritating him. So he tries to get his son to give his son a task that'll keep him away for a while. So he tears this world map up, gives it to his son and says, put it back together again. He says, that should keep you busy for a long time. And the kid literally puts it together in like freaking, in seconds, like in minutes, and brings it back. And his father's like really surprised. And he says, how did you do it so quickly? And he says, well, I didn't try and fix the world. And he flips the map over and he says, I tried to fix the man. And he just put the man together. So it's like all about like, we can't change what's going on out there, but we can control how we react to it and what we do and who we are in this space and in this world. And that should make things better.
That's the heart of resilience. The heart of resilience is choosing to accept and choosing how to respond. Viktor Frankl always talks about the stimulus and response, and there's a gap, he's called, that exists between our stimulus and our response. And I think that's where we find the essence of being mentally well, is when we take that gap rather than just saying, how the hell do I respond? Go. And we actually say, this is the situation, let me respond. I'm going to fix the man instead of trying to fix the world in this situation. Emmanuel, I want to say thank you. It's been amazing talking to you about this. I'm sorry that you went through the journey that you did, but I also am glad because your story will hopefully heal someone else's story and make them feel, better about what they did as well. If they see someone like you spiraling into control and trying to sell masks, instead of telling us beautiful stories and being an amazing face to see on television, I think we can realize that, we're all allowed to have the odd breakdown every now and then.
Absolutely. Yeah. We're all human. And that's the thing. We mustn't be afraid to tell each other what we've been through. I think that's what happens in the world. We're too afraid to tell people we're having a bad time. That's okay. We'll come out of it.
Anything you want to say to end off with? Anything to inspire your myriads of fans who've watched you since you were in Isidingo days? Anything you want to say to them to inspire them for this? We're heading into the next stage of lockdown where we at least can get our hair cut and all of those kind of things. So we're all feeling a little bit more hopeful. Add some hope into the mix.
Well, I just think we need to rejoice. Like when we're coming out of this, we need to really enjoy and rejoice in the things that we have and are grateful for, and think about how amazing it's going to be to see all these people you haven't seen for a long time, and really then take the moment to engage with those human people that you've missed and you haven't seen and all of that kind of thing. And like there's someone on set, he's got an amazing saying. He says, this too shall pass. It may pass like a kidney stone, but it will pass.
And it will. And that's the thing. And we're seeing we're all a bit afraid about our wellness, about our mortality. What better time to celebrate life than we realize
exactly
it is. So
exactly.
I love that. So let's end there. Thank you, Emmanuel, for giving up.
Thank you, Clive.
I'm in the middle of a dressing room and on set with your phone. I've loved chatting to you. And I do hope that people watch this and get what I've got out of it, because I think you've been incredibly helpful. So thank you.
Thank you, Clive. Thanks for having me.